Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to BWTM Sports. If you haven't subscribed already, please do hit the subscribe button. This video will be one of those videos that maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not even next week, but soon will probably be one of those videos you look back and you say, you know what? He was spot on about everything he said here. There's no agenda behind this video. There's no hook or advertising or wanting you to get subscribers, but want us to get subscribers or want views. I couldn't care how many views this video gets. I couldn't care how many subscribers subscribe or don't subscribe. I shouldn't really say that for a brand, but I'm just going to speak some real truth here, or my own truth. This is something that is a problem within the sport of boxing, speaking your truth. The sport of boxing has become nothing more now than not far from WWE wrestling. And it's a shame. The man I have in front of me here is my favorite fighter of all times, Sugar Ray Robinson. This is my fighter. This is who, this was the first guy I ever saw fight. Not live, recorded. It was the first boxing bout I saw. It was against him and Jake LaMotta. I remember a fight with Sugar Ray Robinson. It was the first guy I ever saw moving off the back foot, throwing a combination, knocking guys out off the back foot. My old trainer, Reefer, he had a son called Mark Reefer. Reefer was one of my first boxing trainers. And those who know Reefer know he's a damn good trainer from the East End, from Trinidad. And Mr. Reefer, he's kind of like an uncle to me. He taught me the tricks of the trade, boxing. He showed me things like he would make me stand against the wall and he would throw a tennis ball at me, at my head, and make me have to move my head one way or the other. Old school techniques. You know, put newspapers under my elbows to ensure that I always tuck my elbows in, so I wasn't open to getting hit with body shots, and to make sure that my arm always came back in position every time when I threw a punch. Old school, old school. You know, make you move in one direction for half an hour, just practicing footwork, moving one way and then moving the other way in a semicircle, one way and then the other, one way and then the other. Old school stuff. Making sure that when you're throwing your punches, your chin is tucked down into your chest and looking out. These old school things. Making people miss and making them pay, counter punching, doubling, tripling, quadrupling up the jab, throwing 4, 5, 6 punches and getting away. Back him up, beat him up. You know, really making a guy miss and making him pay, making a guy look stupid. You know, Josie Joe Walcott, Archie Moore, Josie Joe Walcott. You know, where you throw a punch and Walcott makes you miss, makes you overcommit, and then bangs you with the right hand. Or I think, you know, where he'd go to feint to the left, he'd go to left and go to the right, and as you're going over to the right, he hits you with a left hook. Stuff you don't see in boxing no more. The cross arm defense, you know, you're walking a guy down, a taller guy walking a guy down. Okay, you can't get in with your head, so you got a cross arm defense and walk a guy down and cut the range down, cut the ring off. The art of boxing, the sweet science of boxing, that is going, if not already gone, from the sport. A lot of great trainers, these great trainers had lineage. Yeah, they had a line of great trainers before them who had lots and lots of experience. Therefore, you had produced great champions who could counterpunch, who could box, who could move, who could fight on the inside, who could fight on the outside. More complete fighters. Today's fighters can only fight on the outside. As soon as they get a guy that attacks them on the inside, they have a problem. The real talk about boxing. Again, a lot of people don't probably want to hear what I'm going to say here, but I couldn't care less. This is how I feel, and I'm going to get out. I don't enjoy talking about boxing anymore. I really don't. It's a pain when I get on. I don't know if people can hear it when I speak. It's a real pain talking about boxing now. It's painful because when you have had the opportunity to see great fighters fight in the past and pay-per-view events that were pay-per-view events, I remember staying up early in the morning to watch a real pay-per-view event. When you paid for a fight, it meant something special. It was a real event. It was an event where you brought everyone around, your friends came around, your family came around. It was an event that everyone stayed up for. When Bruno fought Mike Tyson for the second time round, that was a pay-per-view event. When Holyfield met Tyson, it was a pay-per-view event. It meant something. It meant something when you stayed up in the morning to watch a pay-per-view event. Today, a pay-per-view event, it's the times have changed. It's made a mockery of, an absolute mockery. We had a time where pay per view events meant something very special. They don't mean anything anymore. Legends of the sport of boxing to today's audience and casual fans mean nothing. And I'll explain why. When you've got casual fans, they're great for the moment and they're great for the fashion, but they don't have any real depth of boxing knowledge. They're for today. They're for today's flavor. They're for today's flavor. And as soon as that person gets knocked out, they go on to somebody else. The problem with today's casuals is that they won't look into the past, and they also won't study and look any further, and they will only look as far as what the television tells them. They won't go any further. They won't do any research because, as far as they're concerned, they don't take it seriously. It's casual, and casual means part time, not often, not regular, not passionate. A night out with the lads. That's casual, and so therefore, and that's not disrespect. The casual fans, we owe casual fans a hell of a lot because they are what are propping up the sport of boxing today. Truth be told, it's the casuals holding up the propping up the sport of boxing. They're the ones that are turning up in droves to the big Joshua fights in the UK. Casual fans don't have as much an impact in America, so they have to sell you more good fights. But now the bottom line is this: the reason why the casual fans have taken over the market is because of a few things. First of all, old fashioned boxing fans have a history of watching boxing 20, 30, 40, 50 years of watching great fights and great fighters and seeing the art and watching trainers in the corner doing their work. There was a time when you listened to two great trainers, you'd listen to one corner and you listen to one great trainer, and then you listen to go in another corner and listen to another great trainer. You had the battle of the minds between the trainers, and then the battle of minds between the two fighters. Two great fighters against two great trainers. What more did you want as a boxing fan? Now, Leonard versus Hearns. That great fight between Leonard and Hearns, when Hearns was winning the fight, and Leonard goes back to the corner. And Angelo Dundee turns to Leonard and says, "You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it." Leonard gets off his stool and goes out and stops Thomas Hearns. Greatness, things like that are somehow all of a sudden washed away. Great fighters with legendary status are being ignored or just washed away. And only when they force themselves upon the public that do people pay attention. Mike Tyson is revered around the world as the baddest man on the planet. Mike was a good fighter, but Hall of Fame great? That's questionable. People are more today interested in sensationalism. They're more interested in what a fighter's eating and drinking, who's sleeping with, or what he's saying to somebody else in a press conference. People are caring less about a person's fighting skills and more about the drama that they bring. And Adrian Broner or Javonte Davis, the Charlo brothers talking garbage They have to do that now because boxing skills don't sell anymore. You have to talk garbage. There has to be some drama attached to you. Floyd Mayweather is a perfect example. Great fighter, great boxing skills. But the drama is what people loved about Floyd. Him arguing with his father, him running around with his cars and his money. That is what people were interested in more than Floyd fighting. Floyd, you would never call Floyd an exciting fighter. You would call Floyd a technician. But as a boxing fan and one who's watched boxing over the years, can appreciate his skill level. Today, people adore Gennady Golovkin, a guy that lacks the technical skills like a Floyd would have, a guy that could never live in the same breath as a Marvin Hagler or Thomas Hearns or Sugar Ray Leonard. A man in Gennady Golovkin who is struggling against a guy that's much smaller than himself, but yet somehow they believe that Gennady Golovkin would beat a guy like Marvin Hagler, but he's struggling against Canelo, a guy that Floyd Mayweather beat with relative ease. A stand-up brawler who fights with his face gets more credit and gets more kudos or more worship than a fighter that's got real skills and real talent in Floyd Mayweather. But Mayweather didn't care. It was about the money for Floyd. Screw you all. You don't want to give me my credit? That's fine. You're going to downward pay for my fights. And that's how Floyd went about it. Floyd was fortunate. And he continues to make fans pay for things like he's got this Pacquiao fight coming up now. That's because the young fighters today, it's about money it's about their money and their brand rather than actually whether they can actually fight and whether they're prepared to fight the best. Before, these guys weren't getting paid as much as they're getting paid today, and they fought more regularly and they fought the best. And that is that. Looking at a guy like Sugar Ray Robinson's record, for example. Okay. Let me see if I can pull this up a second because I had it up a minute ago about Sugar Ray Robinson. This guy had a record of almost 200 and odd fights. 200 odd fights, like 19 losses. It's great. It's greatness. The reason why I love Sugar Ray Robinson is not about his box, not just his boxing ability, but the way he carried himself outside the ring, what he did for his community. Tremendous fighter. Another guy, Sugar Ray Robinson and Henry Armstrong, two of the greatest fighters of all time. Henry Armstrong started his career as a featherweight. He fought from featherweight to lightweight to welterweight and at middleweight. He won 3 titles simultaneously and went to middleweight while holding all 3 belts, went to middleweight, and but for a draw in a fight he should have won, he would have been winning. He would have had 4 different belts in 4 different weight categories. And in those days, there wasn't WBC, WBA, IBF, IBO. There was none of that crap. One champion. That was it. This was about to find out who truly was the best. Today, it's about marketing. It's about making as much money as possible. This person's a champion. That man's a champion. This one's irregular. This one's super champion. This one's silver. This one's gold. This one's diamond. Absolutely ridiculous. And the worst thing about it today is, back in the day, the commentators told you blow by blow coverage, and they had some great commentators who understood the sport of boxing. Today, it's about the boxer fighting for the network. The media today is biased. It's not telling you exactly about what's going on. It's about the political connections. It's whether your promoter and the media, whoever the media are in cahoots, are together. Are they sleeping together? I don't mean literally sleeping together, but they are in partnership. So they belittle anybody else that comes along. So because they have their names next to it, like I saw a list of people that were that thought that GGG won the fight. Okay, and whether he thought GGG won the fight or not, his trainer, and I believe the only reason why the camp are being magnanimous about the whole thing is because they want the 3rd fight. That's what I think. That's why I think. I don't think GGG's got any interest in facing guys like Charlo or Billy Joe Saunders. I think they want to fight Canelo again. That's why I think. Gigi's got no interest in fighting a Charlo or Billy Joe Saunders or Andrade or any of them guys. He's got no interest or Deverenchenko, because if he was going to fight, wanted to fight Deverenchenko, he would have fought Deverenchenko, but he didn't. He'd rather vacate his belt, or sorry, get stripped of his belt, than fight Deverenchenko and fight a guy from a low weight division. You know, and the media today are not telling us the true story for most of these fighters. So today, a guy like Golovkin gets huge praise, who's only fought, what, 5 world champions? Against somebody, Canelo, who's fought the who's who of boxing. So they think he won those fights, so he lost those fights. He still fought the who boxing, and he also fought the pound for pound best fighter in the world. And for me, this boxing lark it's painful. And you see, there's more casuals getting into the room and more people who are less prepared. It just shows your society today. More people are less prepared to do their research, and old school people like myself and many others, I'm telling you, are going to get peed off with the sport. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to have casuals who are in positions of power. Look at Dan Raphael. Dan Raphael is at ESPN. No disrespect to Dan. Have you ever heard him break down a fight? Was he ever? Have you ever heard him break down a fight? This is a guy who is a main sports writer at ESPN. Have you ever heard him break down a fight? Has he even been in a fight? But yet he sits there and criticizes fighters that have worked hard in the sport, who've had come up from nothing and pull up themselves and become champions. And he sits on the side criticizing them. This is the state of the boxing we've got today. People who have biased, people who rate a fighter based on the color of the skin rather than the content of the heart and what they do in the ring. With people like that, they don't need to be in boxing. The sport of boxing needs an enema. If you don't know what enema is, another one, it needs like a suppository, what they call the thing is stick up your backside when you're constipated. That is what's happened with sport of boxing. The sport of boxing is purging. The promoters, the managers, the PR are even worse. Most of these PR people are damaging and ruining these fighters. Yeah, they're looking after the brand, and they're doing interviews with these guys that are these brands that are going to ask them the same old questions over and over again. That does nothing for their brand. It doesn't build a story. It doesn't build backstory about these fighters. And these PR people don't have a clue about boxing. The majority of them haven't got a clue about boxing. And they are the ones I blame them, wholly responsible for making our fighters have less and less access to them. It's not being sore or being, it's what it is. It's what happens. So I have very little respect for a lot of these PR people. Very little respect. Very little respect. And they take their fighters to the same people who are the casuals. And these networks, they don't care about the fighter. They don't care about the fighter. They care about sensationalism. Unless the fighter is on their network, they don't care about the fighter. They don't care about the fighter. You know, because the way they treat the fighters. Look through history. So for me, the sport is dying fast. There's no rebirth for the sport unless you do 3 things. First and foremost, the trainers need to be getting on tutelage under world-class trainers that have been around. A lot of the top class trainers. Look at someone like James Elibashir. James Elibashir was working side by side with Emmanuel Stewart, a great trainer in his own right. Why does he not get the accolades? Because he speaks his mind. The sport is not one for people to speak their mind because they get ostracized. So rather than have somebody who speaks their mind and is experienced, rather have a trainer up there who doesn't deserve the accolades, hasn't got a clue what they're doing, and that's who people are seeing. And you have a top trainer, a world-class trainer, fighters in a difficult position, and what do you tell the fighter? Just go and hit him more. That is not a hallmark of a great trainer. For me, a hallmark of a great trainer is, like I said, I just spoke the other day, just a minute ago, speaking about Sugar Ray Leonard and the Thomas Hearns fight. A guy who can motivate and bring something special out of his fighter. You're blowing it, son. Was it the 13th or 14th round? That Ray Leonard, he's out on his feet, exhausted. He pulls something out of his jaw, pulls something up from his jockstrap and goes and stops Thomas Hearns out. Thomas Hearns was no bum. Thomas Hearns was no, pushover. He was a great fighter. And Thomas Hearns' resume has proven that afterwards. You know, and people rate how many great fighters in today's era, how many great fighters, these fighters great fighters, not good fighters, not multiple belt holders or title holders, great fighters. You look at Hearns and Hagler, or Hearns and Leonard, for example. Both guys went on to become multiple weight world champions, fighting the best that were around. Duran, people don't talk about guys like Mike McCallum, great fighter. Mike McCallum would have cleaned out people like Gennady Golovkin and probably Canelo as well. Mike McCallum. People talk about Golovkin being his power puncher, but they forget about Julian Jackson. When Jackson hit you, you stayed hit. And Jackson was one of those guys, you either knocked him out or he knocked you out. Legendary, one of the greatest punchers of all times, Julian Jackson. But you don't hear him being talked about. This is what I talk about the state of boxing. Multiple belts. If you really want boxing to be cleaned up, you bring it back to being one belt. All those belts you've got at the moment, unify being one belt. One belt, one champion. That's the first thing. The other thing is, they say don't bring the fight back to 15 rounds. Yeah, you go back to 15 rounds. That's the second thing. Third thing, same day weigh-ins. The damn fighters have been blowing up 20, 30 pounds in between on a 24-hour thing. They talk about, it's dangerous. Well, back in the day, I saw guys fighting 15 rounds. And I'll probably say there's more injuries today than was back then. So for me, and these guys fought more regularly. Not 36, 37 fights, 50. People celebrating Floyd having 50 fights. These guys were having 100, 150 50 fights, and they were fighting regularly. Sometimes they're fighting every week or 3 times a month. Great fighters. Look at their legacy. Go on BoxRec and look at these guys. Ray Robinson. How did the guy get over 200 fights? The sport is a mockery. Tables being thrown and people are getting called out. It's an absolute joke. And then fighters not fighting it. And then promoters coming out with crap about gate receipts and how many people turn up to fights. When you have to start looking at gate receipts and who fills out the arena, do you think Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, people gave a damn about the fact that Frazier or Ali sold out an arena? They didn't give a damn about that. 2 great fighters fighting. That's what people want. Foreman versus Ali. 2 great fighters fighting, duking it out. Holyfield versus Bowe. 2 great fighters, the smaller guy versus the bigger guy, the highly skilled Rick Bowe versus the cruiserweight and former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Great fights. Great nights of boxing. Evander Holyfield fighting Mike Tyson. Tyson was on the comeback, knocking everybody out. And here's Holyfield. And people thought Holyfield was an old man and washed up. Evander goes on and beats Mike Tyson. A fight that I predicted Holyfield would beat Tyson. Great fights. People look at Joshua and Klitschko and say it's a great fight. But when we look deeply into that fight, we look at Klitschko, who hadn't fought for almost 2 years. And this is an old man knocking down a young champion. Truth be said, this wasn't a prime Klitschko. This wasn't prime for prime. Alas, the sport of boxing, it's going to take people in boxing, the boxing community. This is the YouTube boxing community in general. It's going to take some thick-skinned people to continue doing YouTube videos on boxing. Those who are knowledgeable in the sport. Unless they just upload videos with their opinion. If they do live shows and do live chat, like now, I've turned my chat off. Because I don't want to hear what anybody's got to say at this point in time. I just want to share how I feel. Because I feel what's going to end up happening, it's almost a bullying culture within the YouTube community. If you don't say what the mainstream media, who are paid to sell a narrative, who are paid to tell you what their promoter wants them to say, to ensure they get paid. You be honest. You go and talk to some of these people in the sport of boxing off camera, and you ask them their real opinions, and they'll tell you their real opinions. Ask yourself a question: why didn't someone like Spencer Ferron, who's for knowledge so knowledgeable, why didn't Sky have him live? Because they can't control that narrative. Because they can't control the fact that if Spencer was live, he would say something that was controversial and not how the yes man would want him to be. That's why he's got that little pokey show in the corner. Man should be out there speaking his mind, speaking his truth. The truth is not appreciated. Lies, manipulation, and propaganda is appreciated. You know, people are quick to shout robbery with Golovkin and Canelo. I don't hear nobody shouting robbery when Jacobs and Golovkin fought. That's not robbery there. See, people are very biased when it suits. When it comes to their fighter, then the narrative suits. It's a robbery. But you see, these people are shouting robbery. A lot of these people are shouting robbery. Again, you go back to you track these people. And a lot of them are paid to say these things. But deep down, behind closed doors, look at Teddy Atlas. Teddy Atlas the other day said something, and he got pulled off a TV station because he said something that wasn't in the narrative, wasn't in the script. You know? So that's what it is. So it's a sad thing that the truth is no longer appreciated. And you've got these people now that come on these YouTube channels who don't want to listen to truth or listen to boxing science or knowledge, and they just want to repeat what others are saying. And it's a damn shame. But to me, it doesn't make a difference to me one way or the other. I didn't build BWTM has not been built to just be about boxing. Anybody understands that, knows that. But it's a shame because I can see a lot of channels eventually losing heart and closing down. I've been doing this 10 years now, but I can see a lot of channels shutting down, and I can see more channels opening up that are speaking the narrative of the promoters. I can see it happening. And what was once a great sport being made a mockery of, with trainers who wouldn't even be fit to carry the spit bucket. That's what you're going to be having. And fighters that are ill-equipped, and fighters that are not to the standard of yesteryear because the trainers are not good enough. So they can't. If you don't know the technical, if you haven't got the technical know-how, then how are you going to pass it on to fighters? So you're going to have fighters that walk with get a whole heap of punches with no technical skill, unable to move their head out of way of good punches. So only the fighters that have got very good trainers with good lineage, a good background, will do well. Enzo Calzaghe, rest in peace, was a very good trainer. He did well with his son Joe, and he's a one-off. I believe Enzo Calzaghe was a piano teacher, so he was special. Enzo Calzaghe, he knew his sport. He knew the sport very well. Shout out to Enzo Calzaghe for that. So when I look at guys like Sugar Ray Robinson in black and white, where are our legends? Our legends are dying fast. When people put people like Gennady Golovkin as a legend and will beat guys like Marvin Hagler, that, I'm sorry, it's the end. It's the end of what a legend is. And 10 years from now, maybe Floyd Mayweather might be the last legendary fighter. Might be. And it may just be a fact that great fighters are not appreciated until they've retired from the sport. And by then it's too late because there's no appreciation. Because no matter what a fighter does in this era, he's always been criticized. No matter what he does, he's always been criticized. He could have done this right. He could have done that right. Can't say, good fight, well done, congratulations, and leave it as that. Oh, well, he could have done this. And he hasn't fought. His chin's not been tested. And, it's always, look at Floyd. Look at the way generally the media treat Floyd Mayweather. Oh, we never fought Golovkin. He fought Canelo, but Canelo was too young. Oh, he fought Mosley, but he was too old. Oh, he fought Maidana, but Maidana wasn't that skilled anyway. The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. So name me one fighter today that is above reproach, a fighter that is uncriticisable, and that's the thing. And so once you're constantly criticizing, you know, the records won't speak for itself because you can have people out there completely bashing. So people ain't got time for that, and they go to other sports, basketball, American football, uh, whatever, baseball. They'll go to other sports, and boxing is a dying art. I'm afraid to say, people, and that's just the honest truth. You might not like what I'm saying, but that's where I see the sport going. Very few good trainers, very few good fighters, technically, and a huge gap between the class between what was and what is. Okay, well, I'm going to end this now. A very disgruntled, very disappointed, and very disillusioned boxing fan. It's a shame that a guy like Henry Armstrong, who's recently been signed to Round for Round Boxing, doesn't get the sort of kudos he should. And people are more interested in Deontay Wilder, and they criticize Wilder for his skill level. But yet a man like Henry Armstrong, people just batter an eyelid to and moving on with their day. I don't even think if Sugar Ray Robinson is signed to a boxing game today, apart from the old school fans, that today they would recognize and appreciate how great a fighter Sugar Ray Robinson really was. Ali, the reason why Ali is talked about so much is because Ali was also a political figure outside the ring. You couldn't ignore Ali. But when Ali was in his prime, he was hated. And that is a fact. He was hated. Look what he had to do. Look what he went to go through. There's probably no fighter today in current history that would do the things that Ali did. Ali, Ray Robinson, Henry Armstrong. A few good men, a few great men that did great things. Larry Holmes. Very few people talk about Larry Holmes. Big George Foreman, legendary puncher. Ernie Shavers, another legendary puncher. And the list goes on. Archie Moore, Josie Joe Walcott. I could go on and on and on and on of these great fighters. And it's only, you'll notice, only the boxing fans or boxing connoisseurs who really appreciate the sport, appreciate these great fighters. And that's what sticks in our minds, not the current crop, because we've been appreciated and we've been able to appreciate greatness. Greatness in this era comes all too easy. And the fighters don't fit the mold. We're too quick to praise people and give them superstar status for doing absolutely jack. And we're also too quick to pull down our legends who've done so much and put so much hard work in an era which was far more difficult and more was required. And you were unable to cut corners like you do today. 15 rounds, a real testament. I'm out. Take care.